Shadow Slave. Error by author Luukkk. Chapter 101-104. 2 days later. Hel was a princess, and not just any princess, but one from the most powerful clan in the world. Naturally, she had absolute confidence knowing the song stood at the pinnacle of humanity right now. There was no way those Valor bastards had any chance against them. That also meant she held a lot of influence in Moirai. Why? Well, the answer was simple. Her sister, Luna, was the Duke's lover. So, Hel was quite beloved in the city. But she couldn't help but admit that the citizens of this place were disturbing. First of all, the population of the entire city was less than 500,000. Second, every single one of them was a specialist. It didn't matter whether they were combat-oriented, analytical, forgers, or healers. Most of them were fighters, though, and there was another concerning fact: they were not only powerful and skilled, but also unhinged and sadistic, which frightened her a little. She wasn't exaggerating. Not at all. Because she was literally watching a bar burn in front of her right now. "Hey, lady, any spare change?" She heard a voice behind her and looked up in surprise. It was the same pitiful yet handsome homeless man she had met before. Smiling kindly, she handed him some Luna and a few amantes. He took the coins without another word, slipped them into his pocket, and went on his way. Then there was another thing she noticed very quickly. Awakened were dragging chained and beaten nightmare creatures toward the endless hunt. From what she understood, they either forced the creatures to fight each other, made them race, or fought the beasts themselves. For the first time, Hel felt a hint of pity toward nightmare creatures, even though they were vile monsters. But that wasn't the only strange thing. There was also a certain culture here, and it was vastly different from how legacy clans or humans in general behaved. These people were greedy, and they valued cunning and trickery more than battle prowess. She occasionally witnessed odd sights of awakened leaping across rooftops instead of using the road to shorten the distance. Some even dove into the river to reach their destination, which was baffling but surprisingly common. And let's not get started on how many times people scammed each other here. Apparently, if you got fooled, then it was your own fault. Who asked you to be so stupid? Fights were common as well, though most of them happened in the endless hunt. Sometimes, however, awakens fought each other in the streets too. There were also no guards here. That wasn't very surprising when the entire city was filled with battle-hardened killers who were far more experienced and skilled than any normal awakened. However, despite all of that, they were also unexpectedly close with one another, which she found rather cute. For example, Deadlight, a rather frightening individual, often allowed some people to eat for free or cooked for them if they brought him ingredients. He especially enjoyed butchering nightmare creatures that tasted good, like scavengers. For them, those monsters were simply food. Centurions were more dangerous, but they shared the same fate. But just because those two types of creatures were common, it didn't mean the Forgotten Shore was safe. Far from it. In fact, it was one of the deadliest regions, simply because there were fallen, corrupted, and even great rank creatures lurking in the dark sea outside the city. Walking to the cafe, she gave Chu, who had made quite an impression on her, 20 Luna and bought a coffee and a berry trifle. As she turned around cheerfully, she heard a conversation and paused. Hel didn't want to be rude or eavesdrop, but she was a little curious, since Chu was speaking to that pitiful homeless man she had met earlier. Wait, now that she thought about it, that voice sounded familiar. Wasn't it the same one as the arena commentator? Intrigued, she took a small bite of her dessert and listened. "You came from my nuts, I made you. What's a few Luna to you anyway? The money you get from defending your title as champion is like, I don't know, a hell a lot. I've never seen that much money, so how would I know?" The homeless but annoyingly handsome man said nonchalantly. An irritated voice replied with a scoff. "Right, you wouldn't, huh? And aren't you supposed to be working?" The homeless man scratched the back of his head, pushing his blonde hair back as he smiled maliciously. Hel blushed and quickly averted her gaze from his blue eyes, though she still sneaked a peek at his abs, blushing even harder. "Oh, that. Well, I was fired. They said something about embezzlement or whatever. I don't know nor do I give a damn. So I lit up the bar." He yawned and leaned against the counter. Hel froze, remembering the bar that had been burning while she was taking a stroll. So that was him. Well, that was kind of hot. Dude, seriously. Achu shook his head, his expression disappointed and entirely unimpressed. Yeah, guess I'm back on the streets. The really hot homeless man answered with a dark smile, showing no sign of regret. Apparently, thievery, fraud, and other acts that were usually considered crimes were not taken seriously here, except for murder and a few serious offenses that could affect someone's life very negatively. At worst, Gunlog would be forced to rebuild the bar and compensate the owner. Normally, that would have been a serious issue for any average person. But no one in Moirai was normal, and if they wanted to, any of them could become filthy rich with minimal effort. The reason was simple. Countless nightmare creatures lived here, which meant countless sources of money and recourses. All anyone needed to do was hunt them, extract the cores, useful materials, meat, and sell them. That was essentially the whole process. Overall, Moirai was a militaristic city focused far more on combat strength than business. And not strength in the sense of groups or unified organizations. They all pursued their own individual power. That made them unique and terrifying as fighters, but as an army, they were lacking since they were far more chaotic than organized. Another thing was that many awakened here were former criminals who had nowhere else to go. Their brutal, cunning and sadistic traits were usually frowned upon in the waking world. Their fate was almost always execution, since they were considered unstable. But here, those so-called cruel and disgusting traits were normal. No one cared, especially when burning a bar was considered a common occurrence. After listening to their conversation, Hell did not know what to say, other than admitting that the poor, homeless man, who no longer looked poor and more like a complete deadbeat, was extremely handsome. He was appealing like the delectable dessert she was eating. She was almost drooling, but froze the moment a raven descended from the sky and turned into a human. With black hair and black eyes, he looked rather average at first glance, yet still athletic and tall. He took a seat and ordered coffee with a tired expression. Meanwhile, Daddy Storm walked out, dejected that his dear son had refused to give him money. However, he wasn't entirely helpless, since many guests had come to Moirai. And indeed, a government agent found Gunlog quite hot and pleasant, eventually asking him out on a date. How that happened was a complete mystery. If you asked Gunlog, he would say it was natural charm, but most awakened in the city would answer that they had no idea how that worked, since the majority of them would die as virgins anyway. Funnily enough, women didn't like men from Moirai. Many outsiders couldn't understand why, since they were all from the same clan, so distance shouldn't have been an issue, right? However, from what Hell had heard, the reason was pretty simple. Almost all the men were either psychopaths, weirdos, thieves, scammers, gold diggers like a certain drunken storm, destroyers, or bloodthirsty battle junkies. But Hell didn't care about that. What worried her was the fact that Daddy Storm had been taken away by that banshee. What do I do, she thought, wailing internally as she walked in circles for a solid 2 minutes, biting her nail from anxiety. Then she blinked in realization and hit her fist into her open palm. She was a princess. She could use her connections. And that was how she ended up standing on the doorstep of a certain blasphemer. Swallowing, she composed herself, exhaled, and knocked on the door. The house, though surprisingly large, was nothing fancy. She could tell it had been rebuilt at least twice. Amen, there's someone at the door. Go get it then. Fine, but not because you told me. Hell blinked, not expecting such a response from the Duke. The door opened, and a tall, red-haired, muscular man stepped out, the king of crashing out and rage-baiting himself. Hi. She smiled sheepishly, waving her hand. I was sent by Luna. If you can. Holy shit, it's Hannah. The Fire Raven's merchant exclaimed, his head held high with an arrogant smirk. His exclamation did not go unnoticed by the theft merchant, who quickly asked. Who's that? You know. Hannah, that UWU girl. Dude, who? One who's doing OnlyFans. Hey, Gooner. Suck my dick before I clap your booty cheeks. That's gay as fuck, considering you're the masculine side of the creator, dude. Hell stood there, listening to their conversation, her pleasant smile gradually becoming forced before disappearing entirely, leaving her baffled and wide-eyed. Shut up, Lil Raven. It's really Hannah, Medici yelled at Eamon, looking up at the second floor. Then he glanced at Hell with a creepy smile. Oh, how I loved your boobs. You're hopeless, dude. Always desperate. The theft merchant's voice was nonchalant and cool as he looked down from the second floor. Chillax, my brother from a different mother. It's not that bad yet. Whatever you say, hot dog. Eamon nodded, not leaving his bed. But then he remembered Hell mentioning Luna, so he had to figure out what was happening. Groaning, he began thrashing around under the covers, eventually getting up, kissing his bed, and walking downstairs while wearing a onesie and hugging his pillow. Now, instead of Medici, Hell was staring at Eamon. What the hell is that costume? She wondered. It was green, with long ears and a long, ugly nose, a creepy, disturbing smile plastered across its face, and greedy eyes that seemed to follow her every move. And the body pillow. Hell was aware that such pillows were usually paired with covers depicting fictional characters. In Amon's case, however, there was nothing like that. Instead, it was covered with images of gold, jewels, soul shards, unique materials, and other treasures, which made Hell wonder just how much this man loved money. Yet, despite his fondness for wealth, that did not mean Eamon was obsessed with it. In fact, the main reason he loved money was simply because he enjoyed spending it to have fun. What are you wearing, Duke? She wasn't entirely confident that this was really a Duke now. It's a goblin, of course. My spirit animal, well, I can have multiple spirit animals like rats, worms, and ravens. And while a goblin isn't exactly an animal, it's the cutest thing in the world. If you're saying that, Hell thought, even more convinced that this city was filled with weirdos. Though she was curious about something else. Mr. Medici, are you living here? Yeah, I asked Jet if it was fine for me to anchor myself to the Crimson Spire. She said no. Then I threatened her that I would marry some princess and leave the government if the higher-ups refused, so they let me stay. Hey. Medici crossed his arms proudly. Hell blinked, staring at him curiously. Just how irresponsible person can be. You mentioned Luna. Why did she send you? Eamon asked with a yawn, rubbing his eye from sleepiness. Yes. Luna told me that you could help me with something, Mr. Eamon, Hell said, nodding, her tone a bit haughty. What in the name of my glorious dick? Do I look like someone's errand boy? Medici sneered at her, clearly annoyed by her air of superiority, flames flickering around him. It was inevitable, sooner or later, he would have crashed out, anyway. But the goblin wasn't fazed by his friend's edginess. Instead, he patted Medici on the shoulder, shaking his head. Now, there's no need to be aggressive. That's not very gentlemanly, Warman. That's right. That is why every girl rejects you. What is the point of being handsome if your IQ is below 0? Hell chimed in. Wait, there is nothing below 0, though, Medici said, a bit confused. Exactly. It is in the negatives. Higher IQ means more intelligence. But in your case, it is higher only because the number keeps dropping below 0, and instead of intelligence rising, it is retardation. Eamon, Medici said, surprisingly calm. What's up? Eamon blinked, raising an eyebrow at him. Let's kill her, Medici stated bluntly, summoning a fire raven. Then he frowned, grimaced, and immediately cancelled the technique, shaping the flames into a spear instead. Whoa. Let's calm down, Eamon exclaimed as he quickly grabbed a fire extinguisher and pointed it at Medici. Why? She deserves it, Medici said, glancing back in bewilderment. Hell pursed her lips, the color draining from her face. Not because she was scared, of course, but because they were idiotic enough to forget that she was a saint and could kill them with a wave of her hand. Before that, however, a different thought crossed her mind. Where in the world did he pull that fire extinguisher from? Meanwhile, Eamon exhaled softly, placing a hand on his shoulder as he started whispering in his ear. So, you know, why, and, then we. I can't hear you, Medici frowned. After that, money, pay. Dude, I still can't hear you. He threw his arms up in exasperation. Wow, enhanced senses, hunter's instincts, and Alit is wasted on you, my guy. But well, that makes sense since you are from the Cretans pathway. All those abilities and still being a bum. That is something. Now that I think about it, every single hunter is a bum. Be it Anderson, Danitz, Alista, Sauron, Einhorn, even your goat, Medici. You, Medici's eyes widened in fury and betrayal. Take that back. What do you mean Medici's a fraud? How dare you slander my goat? Your goat is a bottom-tier bum. No matter how much you cope, use head canons, delusions, speculations, or media illiteracy. Your goat was born a bum, and he died a bottom-tier bum, then revived as king of angels to gain more aura, yet he still ended up a bum. It was generational aura loss. Every hunter is a fraud who cannot do anything without a fragile balance, without sucking the city of calamity's dick or relying on nepotism. They are sexists because they are insecure and victims of a demoness, Eamon said with a straight face, sipping his juice. Medici fell to his knees, looking up with a bleak, hollow expression, a manly tear slipping from his eye. As for Hell, she was genuinely dumbfounded. What were they even talking about? Medici's goat. An actual animal. And why was he speaking as if he and Medici were two different people? Wasn't his name Medici, or was there someone else called that too? And Eamon, what in the world was a city of calamity? Fragile balance. Hunters. Demoness. Was that some kind of nightmare creature? None of this made any sense at all. Eamon shook his head, turning away with a disappointed look. Enough of that, man. Look at her, she's tweaking out, and our rent is due next week. Instantly, Medici stood up, towering with a determined and serious expression as he addressed Hell. What seems to be the problem, Shorty? Hell froze for a moment, her confidence shaken. Rent. Wasn't he a duke? Swallowing, she took a deep breath and asked, her curiosity awakened. Mr. Eamon, aren't you a duke? What do you mean by rent? Why would you pay rent when you are one of the most powerful people in the city? Eamon blinked and scratched the back of his head awkwardly. We got drunk yesterday, and Gunlog took us to Aiko's casino. So we lost everything. I see. I really don't understand how these people's brains work. But isn't Lady Aiko your subordinate? Hell asked tentatively. Well, she is, but that doesn't mean she's my slave. Not to mention, that greedy gremlin wouldn't give us money. In fact, I think we owe her a lot. Would these people really help me, Luna? Hell cried internally. But she quickly regained her resolve. She needed to rescue Gunlog from that banshee. Phew, fine then. Listen up, you scoundrels, since your princess is talking, Hell proclaimed, her voice loud and haughty as she placed her hand on her chest and closed her eyes. What you two need to do is, cut the crap with that dramatic bullshit and explain, bitch, Medici muttered, his expression twisting into disdain. Guys, I just found out that there's some kind of competition between fanfic writers. What is going on? People are actually getting paid. That's something, I guess. But I'm still surprised. I've read some of those fics and dropped most of them since they were made by AI. No grammar corrections, nothing, just straight up letting the AI write. So how are those stories ranking at the top? I don't understand. There are so many great writers out there, for example, Bleep, Burger No Tomatoes, A Story for One, and more. I really don't get it, and I was left quite bewildered. Then again, webnovel isn't exactly known for quality, so maybe it's understandable. Enough of that, though. Give me some stones and don't be stingy. Reviews would be nice too. This FIC isn't as active as it used to be. Besides that, give me some feedback, because I'm not sure how the story is going. That's it for now, gang. Enjoy the meal and love you all. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. And please support the author by link in description. A few hours later, Eamon was sitting with a bored expression. His legs were spread wide and stretched out nonchalantly as he leaned back in his chair, his head tilted slightly upward. He was wearing an oversized dark suit with a white shirt and black tie, and the crystal monocle rested on his right eye as always. Hey, what happened to Hell? She was crying. Eamon opened his eyes and saw Luna upside down in his view. Her arms were crossed beneath her breasts, and her expression was slightly amused as she held back a smile. Nothing, Eamon murmured coolly. She just suffered from an illness called disappointment. That's what happens when you don't uproot your delusions in time, I guess. And what happened to you? What's wrong? Aren't your shenanigans enough to entertain you? She asked with a sigh, shaking her head at Amon's odd habits. Nah, I'm just thinking, Eamon replied flatly. Don't play with me. I know you best, dumbass. Luna walked over to him and stared straight into his eyes, then held his cheeks, her face close to his. Too close, in fact, but Eamon didn't react. Seeing Luna upside down and serious, so close to his face, he remained calm and motionless. For some reason, he felt extremely stressed. Even his usual tomfoolery was no longer funny to him, nor did it serve any purpose in avoiding what truly scared him. Something that frightened him more than nightmare creatures, the future, defilement, and unholy beasts. Even more than the secrets that haunted his existence and his corrupted self. I don't know how to be a father. He swallowed, closing his eyes tightly as he clenched his fists. It's ridiculous that I'm scared of a child, an unborn child at that. Luna observed him for a few seconds. A warm smile slowly appeared on her face as she lowered her head and kissed him. How adorable and silly. But what you're afraid of isn't Evangelo. I know you best. You're afraid of responsibility, disappointment, and duty. You don't want to be a bad father, but at the same time you can't help being torn apart between your longing for your son and your ambition. You think that if you pursue your dreams, you will abandon your son. And if you do not abandon your son, then you abandon your dreams. Your heart is filled with fear and divided by uncertainty, caught between your selfish desires and your duty. Isn't that right? Eamon opened his eyes, staring into her crimson pupils with a stunned expression, not knowing how to answer. He had no clever rebuttal, because Luna had described his worries perfectly. All this ridiculous chaos, the fights, festivals, gambling, and drinking. It is as if you are enjoying life for the last time because you believe that once Evangelo is born, you will never again be able to embrace your childish side, the one brimming with dreams and desires. Luna added with a soft, acquiescent smile. She had already come to terms with Amon's desires. She had always known who he was deep in his heart, after all. It is fine, you know. I will never compel you to change because of me. But I hope you will not think of our child that way, as if he is a burden, a chain wrapped around your neck, dragging you into the mud and denying you the chance to reach the light. I really hope so. She mumbled hesitantly, her deep crimson eyes expressing her feelings as she smiled ambivalently. No, that's not it, Luna. Eamon bleated, covering his face. Is it not, really? Luna asked, preconceived of her belief despite having no confirmation. It's not just that. Eamon replied, his expression neutral and slightly bleak. You are right, but I don't think my son is a burden or anything like that. I just don't know what to do. How to be a father, you know. I never cared about this world that much. I didn't care about the sovereigns, corruption, gates, the spell, or anything else. I don't know why, but I never did. But now, all of it feels so terrifying for some reason. I just can't explain it, damn it. You never cared about danger. You took gambles and risked your life to satisfy your desires and your thirst for high, so that your life wouldn't feel so bleak and colorless. I am aware of that, love. But now, every danger you once dismissed as insignificant feels serious, even the things you could easily destroy, right? That is because you are thinking about too many what-ifs. What if a gate opens near our son? What if you are unable to protect him from nightmare creatures? What if he becomes another piece of collateral damage in the Sovereign's war? What if the advancing horrors of the dream realm kill Evangelo? And not only that, you are also afraid of dying now, more than ever. You are truly terrified, because you can't trust anyone with your son's life. That is how afraid you are. Luna explained gently, understanding his complex feelings better than he did himself. When it came to others, Eamon was surprisingly perceptive, but when it came to his own emotions, he was lost and blind. That is, how it is. Eamon frowned, uncertainty filling his expression. It was true, he supposed. He was genuinely afraid that something might happen to his son. What about you, then? He asked her, his dark eyes narrowing as Luna smiled helplessly. I am as afraid as you are, truly. I can't help it. All I think about are my mother's absurd and cruel plans, and how much I loathe them. She paused, taking a seat and leaning back, gently caressing her belly. Her calm expression made her next words feel even more sinister and disturbing. To the point where I want to destroy everything, until all I see are corrupted beasts roaming Ravenheart. Eamon nodded, understanding where she was coming from. He too felt deep, seething hatred. He would have preferred for Luna to give birth before challenging the nightmare. There was no need to enter a nightmare while pregnant and take such pointless risks, especially since that insidious woman already knew about his plan. But that twisted woman wanted to punish Luna for her defiance, even though everything was her fault. She was trying to take his son away from him so that some damned bastard could raise him. His son would grow up not knowing who his real father was, forced to call some cretin his father, while Luna would be reduced to an obedient consort of that retard. Eamon would never forget this bitterness. Kisong tried to steal his lover and his son. So he would steal everything from her in return. Her life, her soul, her kingdom, her wealth, her dreams, her ambitions, her happiness, and her hope, until she became nothing more than what she was meant to be. A corpse. Patience, Eamon, patience. Your time will come, he told himself with a dark look, already sensing that something bad was about to happen. His divination had confirmed it as well. Something would go wrong. But what? His son would live. Everyone would survive. He had already divined it, and fate had revealed its card. So what was it? What was he missing? Damn it! He clenched his fists in frustration, clicking his tongue in irritation as he leaned back. I just have to focus. Everything will be fine. I prepared for it, after all. Instead of stealing light and giving it to the people, all I need to do is steal the sun and their dreams as well, leaving them in eternal dark. Well, that was easy to say, but executing that plan would be a real headache. It will be fine, Luna sighed, feeling just as stressed and exhausted as he was. I hope so, Eamon muttered. Now he truly wished his father were here to give him advice and tell him what to do. He had always hated his nagging, but right now he needed his guidance more than anything. I will cook something, Luna sighed and stood up, as the oppressive silence grew heavier with each passing second. She didn't like how tense they both were. Maybe a delicious meal could improve their mood. However, she couldn't get far from the table because in an instant Eamon caught her arm. His face was pale and his smile forced. It is fine. You are pregnant, so just rest, he said, swallowing as he stood up. The last time Luna cooked, he had gotten diarrhea. Sighing, Eamon went to the kitchen, only to find nothing but bread, cucumbers, and tomatoes. Sighing again, he used decryption, his expression a bit thoughtful as if he were deciding what to choose. Then he nodded to himself and flicked his wrist. Fresh scavenger meat appeared in his hand, followed by potatoes, onions, peppers, salt, herbs, spices, and other ingredients, which he placed on the table. Looks like my neighbor will starve today, he thought with a wry smile as he started cooking. Eamon, do you have plans tomorrow? Luna asked from the living room, her tone hopeful. Eamon knew she wanted to go out, maybe on a date. Sadly, he was busy tomorrow. I cannot. Sorry, love. Maybe next time. I have to explore the catacombs. Again? She asked with a huff. Yes, again. I need as much information as I can get for the nightmare, Eamon confirmed calmly. Half an hour later, he placed the plates on the table along with the cutlery, bread, and the soup he had prepared. Then he poured coffee into his cup and tea into Luna's. The funny thing was that he always washed his hands when it came to cooking. Whether his hands were dirty from washing ingredients or salt had stuck to them because they were wet, he washed them every time without exception. So when he saw the tea spill onto his hand, he remained motionless for a few seconds, groaned quietly, and went back to wash his hands again. After washing them, he returned and took a seat, only to find Luna already enjoying the meal. She was stuffing her face with food, her dark, charcoal skin slightly flushed from the hot soup. Smiling faintly, he took a handkerchief from his pocket and wiped her cheek as she looked up at him, swallowing a piece of potato. How cute, Eamon thought, leaning back in his chair and sipping his coffee. Then he looked at Luna again, pursed his lips in hesitation, and exhaled softly. Do you think we will be good parents? I mean, we can barely take care of ourselves. We are murderers, criminals, chaotic, selfish, disturbing, and from what I understand, also inhuman. Not completely, but sooner or later, we will lose our humanity. It may take years or thousands, but it is inevitable. Humanity is weak and insignificant. Godhood transcends all. Luna stopped eating, grimacing slightly. Her expression was daedalian and convoluted. We will learn. We may not be the best, but at least we will do anything for him. Then she smiled, looking at him warmly. It's not like I don't know why you built this city. You wouldn't have gone this far just for yourself. Heck, you wouldn't have even revealed its existence. The actual heir of Moirai isn't you, after all. It's Evangelo, isn't it? A king yet to be born. Eamon blinked, startled and caught off guard by her words. He genuinely hadn't expected her to know, but it seemed she really did know him best. A bittersweet smile touched his composed face like dew kissing the grass. I guess. He shrugged, not confirming her words despite her knowing smile. Well, what's the point of building anything at all if it rots without anyone to inherit your legacy? Maybe his son wouldn't want to be a king. Maybe he would want to be a traveler, a soldier, or a simple cook like Haru's, enjoying life peacefully. But still, Aemon would prepare the best for him. If he wished to become the ruler, then he would take the throne. If not, that was fine too. Still, despite planning his son's future, he was lost and uncertain when it came to his own, obscured by mysteries. Yet he wasn't preparing for the unknown he would inevitably face. Instead, he was preparing a future where his son would be safe. He wasn't from this world, nor did he feel any particular connection to it. But for the first time since he transmigrated, he found himself tethered to this place by a single string of fate. Named Evangelo. Thanks, Wurusi, for beta reading. Also, bro, change your name. It's weird ASF. Anyway, I was advised by Hermes_Ax and Cthulhu_Yog so thought that the romance feels a bit forced and the interactions with Luna are lacking, so I hope I'm doing a good job with this. Seriously, if I'm doing something wrong or forgetting, please remind me and give advice. As long as it isn't some biting remark or hate, I welcome everything with open arms. We also see how Luna and Aemon are living. I decided to go with realism. Married life isn't exactly sunshine and rainbows, it's filled with responsibilities, anxiety, and exhaustion. Being a parent is really hard, and often they have to sacrifice a lot for us, even their future, dreams, and life. So I hope you appreciate your parents more. They're the only ones who love us unconditionally. Smiley face. Now, about my pacing, yeah, we all know it. Some chapters are around 2K words, some 3K, some even 4K or 5K, so sorry about that. Oh, and the previous chapter can be considered an omake, guys. It's nothing serious, just daily life in Moirai, which is quite chaotic. Now that I think about it, I write the most random stuff when I'm drunk, xdd. Well, that's it. I hope you're all healthy and not filled with poison like me. I hope your families and friends are also doing great. Love you all, enjoy the meal. Next day. This is disturbing, Aemon noted calmly as he stared at the runes. He was deep within the catacombs, exploring them in silence. Even after 3 months of research, he still didn't understand why the catacombs had been built or why they contained countless skeletons. Staring at the literal sea of bones, he felt appalled, his sense of humor completely drained. Back then, he hadn't considered this place important, but now he needed every bit of information he could gather for the nightmare, since it would be just as deadly and unforgiving as this place had been for those pitiful people. From what he understood, the denizens of the Forgotten Shore had been merciless and cruel, bordering on being as disturbing as nightmare creatures. No, most likely worse. They were willing to go as far as possible in order to bring light to a land that had been denied of it. Still, perhaps it was those people's fault. If they hadn't killed the Nephilim, then everything would have been fine. Why did they do it? What had the Nephilim done to warrant such hatred? Was it something as simple, yet inherently human, as fear, or was the Nephilim hated by everyone simply for existing? Aemon shook his head. There was no use dwelling on that now. The only thing he needed was information about the Dark City, since his visions had already shown him that the Nephilim was dead in the nightmare. Looking around, he saw prison cells and hundreds of cold, rusty chains binding skeletons in place. Kneeling down, he took a deep breath, his brow furrowed, and used decryption to understand what had transpired in this godforsaken place. What's that? He murmured. In the next second, his expression tightened and he began digging feverishly, sensing that he was close to uncovering something vital, something truly important. Wait a second, he stopped, closed his eyes, and exhaled. In his excitement, he had forgotten about theft. If he continued digging with his hands, it would take hours. He flicked his wrist, using theft to remove the skeletons at the top. It wasn't enough, so he repeated the process. Inch by inch, he went deeper until he finally found what he was searching for. Narrowing his eyes, he examined the prison cell and what remained inside. He saw a rib, then a fibula, a tibia, a femur, and lastly a skull. Staring at it, he tilted his head. A child's. Yes, it was. No older than 5. Another set of remains suggested one around 12. Damn it. What the hell happened here? This place was the deepest part of the catacombs, and it was split into 3 sectors. The first was filled with a sea of bones. The second was a prison, lined with cells and chains. And lastly, he relied on his superior observation. His eyes widened as he activated spirit vision as well. Nodding to himself, he walked forward into the final sector. Before him lay a giant runic circle and the familiar sight of bones. Beyond that, he noticed that the circle was shaped like a hexagram. Within the 6 triangles, and at the center, were 7 different objects. At the center rested a simple band of metal, decorated with a single glowing gem. In the first triangle lay a graceful war hammer, one side of its head forged into the shape of a narrow beak. The second contained an austere tachi, dark and unbreakable. The third held a beautiful bronze spear, followed by a heavy round shield, a flowing white cloak, and lastly, a ghostly stiletto. Eamon remained still as he observed the ancient relics. Replicas of the shard memories. Yes, without a worm of doubt. But a question rose in his heart. What was the intention behind these replicas and the runic circle? He hummed and used decryption once again, observing the runes through spirit vision. He searched for a few seconds until he felt a bizarre yet oddly familiar aura emanating from somewhere, but it disappeared instantly. I see, he murmured, smiling faintly as he lowered himself and touched the circle. He infused it with essence, activating the runic formation. Slowly, the stone groaned and began to rise. At first, only the center of the runic circle lifted, followed by the triangles, which shifted and reshaped themselves into a construct. And not just any construct, but the Crimson Spire. Eamon asked aloud, blinking in surprise as he watched in fascination. The shield became giant walls, protecting the Dark City. The austere tachi became the people of the Dark City, indomitable and relentless. The white cloak became the priestesses praying for the return of light. The bronze spear became the warriors who fought in the dark. The hammer became what built everything, the city, the walls, and the spire itself. As for the ghostly stiletto, it became what slit the throats of every living being, sacrificing them to the spire. And lastly, the crown with the beautiful glowing gem shone brightly at the top of the spire. It was the artificial sun. He stared at the beautiful construct for a few seconds. Then he felt a pulse, the same familiar sensation returning. Turning back, he looked at the empty hollow left behind by the rising hexagram. Beneath the city and the spire lay the 7 shards, lifeless and cold, denied of light just like the ancient denizens of the forgotten shore. Sacred shards. Amon's eyes widened as he touched his chin, his expression growing thoughtful while decryption worked relentlessly to uncover the secret behind what he was seeing. So they harvested the shards from that pitiful Nephilim. Makes sense. Why waste them? He grinned as he stood up and straightened his posture. Still, what did this mean? He tilted his head in confusion. Why was there a miniature version of the Dark City and the Crimson Spire? Why were the shards left behind by a sacred titan here? And how did the denizens of the Forgotten Shore even manage to kill a Nephilim? Wait a second. It didn't make sense for a sun to appear out of nowhere. So it had to be countless sacrifices, the Crimson Spire, the soul conduit, and lastly the fragments of the soul of the one who took the light from this realm. All of them acting as a catalyst to give birth to an artificial sun. Maybe. He was not sure. As for how they managed to kill the Nephilim, he had no idea. Eamon sighed, feeling a bit dejected. While he had learned a lot, he still hadn't obtained the information he truly wanted. He had hoped to uncover knowledge about the events themselves. What happened, when it happened, and why it happened. Shaking his head, he turned around. It was enough for today. He would return to research more later anyway. He had already spent hours in the catacombs, and frankly, he was tired. Still, he hadn't been able to determine the true purpose of this place. What was this enchantment supposed to do? It might have served as a catalyst at first, but it wasn't limited to that. Shards fueled another enchantment as well, its function something else entirely. He was also unable to understand why there was a prison here, or why there were skeletons of children among the remains. Yet, for some reason, what worried him the most was none of that, but the bizarre feeling he was getting from another enchantment. But as he took a step back, he froze, glancing at one of the skeletons. It was male, judging by what he could tell. Its skeletal fingers rested against the stone floor where runes were inscribed. Yet it was not an enchantment, only words. Even so, those words were far from comforting, and they left Aemon unsettled. Why is time so cruel? When I am happy, it passes so quickly, vanishing in the blink of an eye. Yet when I am in pain, sad, lonely, and afraid, it stretches on endlessly. I understand it now. The unknown was never meant to be named. He is mysterious and bizarre, sitting loftily upon his throne, incomprehensible and great. Nothing is permanent, and nothing escapes time, not even the six gods. In the end, time takes everything and offers it to the unknown. Aemon gulped, his expression filled with an inexplicable dread. He had not noticed it while his eyes were glued to the runes, but his body was drenched in sweat, trembling violently, his teeth clattering. What the hell, why does this feel so familiar? Where have I heard this? Aemon stilled, swallowed hard, and glanced back at the runes. My aspect description. Indeed, his aspect description portrayed error in a strikingly similar way. Suddenly, the darkness within the catacombs grew more oppressive, and the sound of water droplets falling onto cold stone reverberated across the deathly silent sector. Aemon took a step back, his face tightening with unease. Then he noticed a stone tablet. Beside it lay the skeleton of a child, but its bone structure was grotesquely deformed. It had 4 arms and 2 mouths. The first set of arms were normal, but the other pair grew from where the ribs should have been. As for the second mouth, it gaped from the stomach, lined with teeth that resembled serrated fangs rather than anything human. The deformed child was clutching the tablet tightly. What appalled and horrified Aemon wasn't only the body itself, but the fact that the tablet was disturbingly similar to the stone tablet he had used in the Hollow Mountains to inscribe his honorific name. He gulped again, curiosity overwhelming his fear, and finally directed his gaze toward the runes carved into the stone. In the infinite tapestry of existence, the self is but a whisper of illusion. Through the disillusion of ego, the unknown transcends the laws of shadow, beast, war, heart, sun, storm, and dream. And merges with the boundless void. The unknown becomes as eternal as time, as limitless as ever-expanding space, and as mysterious as the spirit. Amon's eyes went wide, his expression frozen in terror as the sound of cracking glass echoed within his skull. His vision fractured, and blood began to seep from his eyes. It felt as though his head had been split open, as if someone were hammering nails directly into his brain. Groaning, he tore his gaze away, gasping as he collapsed into the sea of bones. He coughed violently while circulating his essence, struggling to stabilize his mental state. What the hell? The runes felt corrupted, as if staring at them for too long would drive him mad. Luckily, he looked away in time. In just a split second, he almost lost control. Sighing, he wiped his eyes and lay among the bones for a few minutes, thinking about the words as tenebrous darkness embraced his body like a cloak. The only visible thing was the crystal monocle, which would never lose its luster. The self is nothing but an illusion. What does that mean? Maybe it meant that corruption would swallow everything. He thought so, yet even if he didn't want to admit it, the truth was as clear as the surface of an untouched lake. I am everyone. Is that what it means? For the first time, Aemon wanted to become as dull-witted and foolish as some of the protagonists he had read about. Alas, he was far too self-aware for his own good. Indeed, he knew that the Lord of Mysteries existed in this world, so it made sense that traces of his existence would remain, no matter how small or barely noticeable. Not to mention, no one besides him would understand these words. Decryption was one thing, but knowledge of the mystery paths was another. Why did the runes mention the unknown? For a moment, he thought it was the forgotten god, but that didn't make sense, as the authorities didn't match. Or maybe no one was capable of pronouncing the true name of the Lord of Mysteries. That might be why even the spell used aliases such as Mysteries or the Unknown, essentially the same things. Then comes the disillusion of the ego to gain transcendence over the laws of the universe. This is definitely error. Errors fall outside the scope of all existing laws, inconceivable and unknowable. Everyone is me. And lastly, merging with the boundless void. But space is not empty. Then again, form is emptiness, and emptiness is form. No matter how far one travels, space will always remain bizarre and unexplored. I am everywhere. As he came to the realization, his furiously beating heart and trembling body gradually calmed. The clattering stopped as well, and he took a deep breath, inhaling and exhaling slowly. Eamon covered his face, unsure what to do with this information. If he truly had competitors vying for the throne of mysteries, then he was in serious trouble. But if such enemies really existed, he should have heard of them. This world was dangerous, and they would inevitably have revealed themselves at some point. Yet from his research, no individual with abilities related to the door or the fool had ever appeared. He frowned. He didn't understand. Where were they? He couldn't accept that none of them had heard of him if they truly existed. They were from the mystery group. He refused to believe they were idiots like Anvil and Ki Song, allowing threats to grow without eliminating them. So why were they not killing him and taking his uniqueness while he was still weak? Eamon groaned, dragging his body as he stood up. He had wanted to gain information about the nightmare he would inevitably face, but instead he had found something else entirely, perhaps something even more important than the nightmare itself. I need to learn more, he thought. There must be traces left behind by the Lord of Mysteries. I need to find them and learn as much as I can. But where could they be? Eamon nodded to himself. The answer was obvious. The only being who recorded the true names of the void beings and buried forbidden knowledge to spare himself from the torment of knowing every truth. The demon of dread, Ariel. The knowledge he sought was hidden within the graceless caitiff's tomb. There were other possibilities as well. For example, Nether's tower in the Chain Isles. Nether had left valuable knowledge behind in his tower. Eamon didn't care about Weaver's legacy or Nether's obsession with the storm god. What he needed was knowledge about mysteries. It seemed there was no need to create false lore. It already existed. That meant Medici, Luna, and that hanged man who had taken uniqueness from her were the legacies of the great old dominators like him. I need to research other pathways as well and gather information about uniquenesses, then locate them in order to help my friends reach the level of above sequences. What other places could hold the knowledge I desire? Eamon paused, his expression growing thoughtful as he considered the domain of a certain god. A heart god, also known as the god of souls, emotion, memory, hunger, and growth. Perhaps I could find what I seek within their domain. He shook his head. It was too dangerous. Until he became a saint or a supreme, he couldn't allow himself to step into that forest. It was filled with great rank abominations. I should have read the novel instead of stacking chapters. Where did I even stop? Oh, right. The war arc. What happened after that? He knew from spoilers that Sunny had started traveling to retrieve weaves. Should I start traveling as well? By exploring the citadels of the demons, I might learn something. Not to mention, I could steal various treasures, including weaves. Now that I have reconciled with him, I feel bad about stealing weaves. Nah, I'd steal. Well, if I have the opportunity, I will steal them and give them to him. That bastard is not such a bad guy. Wait, why did I think he was bad before? Well, he did leave Luna behind. That is one reason. Other than that, nothing. Not to mention, I am not that spiteful. I am quite peaceful. Most likely, I would have talked to him and figured out what happened. From what I understand, he didn't leave her intentionally but because he had no choice. So why did I react so aggressively? And why did that hatred disappear as soon as I beat him? Sure, I have no interest in losers, but still. Calm down. Let's think. Eamon summoned Endless Spring, drinking greedily, then dismissed the memory as he continued walking. If he and Sunny had never come into conflict, what would Eamon have done? He would have had a friendly relationship with Sunny, and Neffy's as well. Under her leadership, he might not have even questioned whether there was a better alternative than her plan, and the same tragedy would have unfolded as it did in the novel. But Eamon wasn't their ally or their friend. He stood on the opposite side. Because no one influenced his actions or guided his growth, he developed on his own, becoming a unique individual shaped by his mistakes, experience, pain, joy, and ambition. Because of that, he acted independently, disregarding the story and altering events so drastically that the plot of Shadow Slave was practically destroyed. As a result, Gunlog, Castor, and Harus survived. The Crimson Spire became a functioning citadel, Moirai was built, and much more followed, all of it positive change. He sighed, biting his nail in frustration. Where did his disdain for Sunny and Neffy's come from? It was too sudden. He should have noticed it earlier. And why was it that the moment he defeated them and events began moving in a completely different direction, that hatred simply vanished? It was as if someone wanted him to fight them. Like right now, when he intended to kill Ki-song. As if his actions were being influenced by a beautiful plume gently swayed in the air, ethereal and transparent, falling onto Amon's head and dissolving as if it had never existed. Instantly, Amon snapped out of his thoughts, blinking in confusion. His eyes turned glassy and unfocused as he murmured, almost in a trance. Meh, it's not that deep. I'm just overthinking it. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Omake title: Princess and Homeless Dude. Gunlog and the government agent named Lily were sitting on the grass in the west near the forest of Moirai, staring into the distance at the calm dark sea. The air was filled with unspoken words and feelings. What should I do? It is a bit awkward and he's so handsome. Mr. Clab definitely wins this time. Gunlog, look. Those trees are so big and beautiful, she said with dreamy eyes, trying to act endearing and melt the ice as well. In the next moment, a giant iron axe appeared and cut down the trees. Lily froze, her lips twitching in disbelief as she laughed awkwardly. Ha ha ha, they might need wood. Calm down, you can do this, Lily. She encouraged herself and nudged him, pointing at the sky. Look, that cloud looks like a rocket. How amazing. Oh, there are birds here too, ah. But alas, in the next moment, birds gathered around the fields, circling over a harmless scarecrow. In truth, those birds were spire messengers, and then they all started falling as if they had forgotten how to fly. The only thing that was heard was the insidious screams of the beasts, until nothing remained but silence and new scarecrows in the field. At the same time, some of the clouds instantly vanished, as if someone was deliberately removing them, until all that remained was the shape of. Ha 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 ha. That cloud looks like a penis, a certain red-haired and somewhat misogynistic man said with a loud laugh. Can't you leave us alone? Lily shouted at him in anger after hearing Medici's voice. They worked together, so of course she knew what kind of arrogant asshole he was. My bad, Potter. Oh, where did you lose Harry? Medici said with a smirk, raising his arms in surrender. What does that even mean? Lily huffed, crossing her arms in irritation. Dad! A loud exclamation made Lily flinch, her eyes widening. What now? What are you doing here? I thought you went out for milk. I waited for you for 15 damned years. Yet here you are, shagging some hose and leaving me and Mom alone. How could you? As if naming me Achu wasn't enough. Achu shouted, tears streaming down his face, his fists clenched. Oh, Lily froze, her expression filled with shame, embarrassment, and terror as she quickly stood up. I think I have to take. Her voice was cut off by the snoozing sound coming from Gunlog. Lily was mortified, she was humiliated and angry, standing still and motionless. The best thing she could think of doing was slapping Gunlog awake and running away, tears filling her eyes as she sprinted off without looking back. What happened? Gunlog jumped from the grass, summoning his armor in wariness. Then he scratched the back of his head in confusion, tilting his head. Where's that girl? At least I've got this. He grinned, taking his wallet out of his pocket. Mr. Krabs won't betray me today. Dad, Mr. Gunlog. A tentative yet lively voice came from behind. Gunlog frowned and glanced back, seeing a young, innocent-looking girl staring at him with adoration. Honestly, Gunlog was disturbed, she reminded him of Nephus's fangirls. Not to mention, his rascal son and 2 other idiots had disappeared too. Shit, I spoke too soon, he thought grimly, hearing romantic music a few meters away and hushed voices coming from the tall field of grass. From the first time we met. Turn down the volume, I can't hear what they're saying, dude. Hell, despite hearing this, continued as if they didn't exist. You've made me the freakiest woman in the world, and I like it. The fuck do you think I'm doing? Gimme a moment. Another shout was heard, as if a fight was about to start. I've got it, gang. It's fine. Another voice answered. Hell's expression tightened, but she decided to finish expressing her feelings for Gunlog. So thank you, Mr. Gunlog, and I love. Opening square bracket ... I mean, how do you actually do it? Don't you get nervous? What do girls like while doing it? And also, is it better if the size is too big or just normal? I know small isn't. And there was silence. A wind caressing the tall grass field. You said you deleted it. I forgot, man. But I promise, I was planning to. Just trust. Behind Hel and Gunlog, giant fireball descended, exploding upon impact. At the same time, stream of water rushed out, followed by lightning, fusing two elements while an insidious green gas started spreading out, curling up in the air. Meanwhile, Hel went deathly pale, her eyes tearing up as she looked down in embarrassment. Don't worry about those idiots. Gunlog shook his head with an amused smile. Sensing that he didn't mind, Hel looked up hopefully, but her hopes shattered instantly as Gunlog asked with a wide smile. So, who are you again? Did they hire you to play this prank? Hey, they do this all the time. Wah, sister, those guys are totally unreliable. Hel started crying, running away and leaving Gunlog behind. What the hell? 2 women run away from me today. Something's wrong, he thought, his expression conflicted. Then he grinned, an enlightened look appearing on his face. After so much misfortune, my luck will definitely improve. Hey, Mr. Krabs definitely wins today. He laughed to himself, walking toward the entertainment district where scavengers raced while his son, boss, and friend were fighting and burning the fields. Well, THA fucked up. Kido ain't letting that shit slide. The end. The waking world. A tall, muscular man with dull, carefree eyes opened the door and stepped inside the house. The interesting thing about him was that, despite breaking in, he showed no urgency or concern. Instead, he was completely nonchalant about the entire ordeal. Behind him walked his partner. He wasn't as tall, nor as carefree, but he was still at ease, just more serious than the dull-eyed man. As they looked around, they quickly noticed a door reinforced with spell tech. The nonchalant man remained silent, staring at it, while his partner walked away. A few seconds later, he returned holding a key and calmly unlocked the door. They went inside and descended the stairs, deep into an underground chamber lined with sleeping pods. Beside them stood a small fighting ring and a table littered with cards and half-finished drinks. The dull-eyed man approached the table. The sight was oddly amusing, cards scattered as if someone had thrown them away in frustration after a loss. Meanwhile, his partner grimaced, shaking his head. We've already wasted enough time. Let's get this done and leave. Do you think it'll work? The dull-eyed man asked curiously, scratching the back of his head. I don't know. Let's trust the Lord. He already confirmed that this ridiculous plan might succeed, and even if it doesn't, it's not our place to question it, his partner said with a sigh, covering his face as if he wanted to be anywhere but here. I see. If that's the case, then. The dull-eyed man grinned, glanced at the sleeping pod, and punched it. The glass shattered into countless pieces. The sound was loud enough for the entire neighborhood to hear, if not for the soundproof walls that kept it contained. Are you an idiot? His partner stared at him blankly, irritation plain on his face. What? The dull-eyed man looked back, genuinely confused. You could have just opened the damned pod, dumbass. His partner spat venomously, baffled by the man's savage approach. Yeah, I forgot. My bad. The nonchalant man grinned, clearly entertained and not listening in the slightest. Then he reached into the broken pod and pulled out a young man with curly black hair and pale skin. He wasn't particularly handsome by awakened standards, at least. Above average at best. Despite that, his appearance was refined, and his presence carried a mischievous and almost unsettling air. The man studied the peaceful, sleeping face of the one he was holding, then glanced at his partner. The partner nodded resolutely as white sparks formed around his hands, taking the shape of a bag. The dull-eyed man shoved the sleeper inside without ceremony. The bag wasn't small, but it shouldn't have been large enough to contain a full-grown man, yet it was. Inventory-type memories were just that useful. Still, had the man been awake, being trapped in such a confined space with nothing but darkness for company would have been torture. Let's go, the man said, glancing at his partner, who wore a wicked grin. Aye, boss. But it's exciting, isn't it? We're kidnapping Aemon the blasphemer for dead god Sake. It's ridiculous, ha ha ha, the dull-eyed man laughed. Enough. We're not here to have fun. We're here to get the job done, his partner reminded him coldly as he turned away. The man remained motionless for a moment, shaking his head with a scowl. Life without humor sucks, those miserable mongrels. Are you all ready? Mr. Jacob asked the gathered awakened before him. They stood around a pitch-black pool of darkness at the deepest point of the Crimson Spire, a place that marked the seed of a nightmare, one that the brave, the cowardly, and the insane alike would inevitably be forced to challenge. Medici remained calm as he stared into the tenebrous void. His presence carried a hint of arrogance, but there was no carelessness in him. He knew how dangerous this nightmare would be. The forgotten shore of ancient times would push both his mind and body to their limits. I'll do everything in my power. I will protect my friends, and my nephew. There's no need for useless worry, it brings no benefit. I need to focus, he thought, clenching his fists. His crimson eyes blazed quietly in the darkness. Haru's was serious and a bit anxious, staring at Luna's belly with a worried look. His bleak eyes narrowed, yet he remained thoughtful. Truth be told, Haru's didn't like adults that much besides his friends, who more or less were no different from family. They lived, slept, ate, fought, laughed, and fooled around together. But the most important one here for him was still little Evangelo, the defenseless, unborn child forced to participate in this hellish ordeal because of the Queen of Worms. Nightmares were unpredictable and dangerous, the chance of the child surviving was close to zero, which made his heart tighten even more. Don't worry, my nephew. Uncle will butcher anyone who tries to harm you, he told himself, his expression growing more determined, bloodthirsty, and cold. On the other hand, Gunlod was unbothered and drunk. Understandable. For a person like him, death wasn't scary at all. He had been prepared to die for a long time already, since the day he became a bright lord and understood just how deep the shit he was in. That's why he wasn't concerned with the nightmare endangering his life, but he was a bit worried when it came to his friends. Castor wasn't bothered by the nightmare at all. He was confident in his ability to escape if he woke up in a dangerous situation and knew he was capable of finding his allies as well. Note: he is just a zealot and believes his God will save him if something happens. Kai was nervous, if he was honest. Challenging a second nightmare wasn't something to be taken lightly, but he was also determined to survive and defeat whatever horrors he would encounter. He wouldn't allow himself to turn away or avoid looking at the disgusting side of the world because of his own weakness. Kido wasn't with them. She had decided to challenge the nightmare with Gemma. The two of them, along with Lady Sishin, would challenge the second nightmare Kisong had prepared. They had known each other for years and had good teamwork. Meanwhile, Luna was staring at the darkness with an unreadable expression. It was clear that she was afraid, not because she lacked strength, far from it. She was someone who was almost unkillable, and in the future, she would be immortal even as the sovereign of the physical world. But what she was afraid of was something happening to her child. She had a bad feeling about this, something cold and terrible crawling in her gut. As for Eamon, he was sitting at the edge where the light of the torches met the darkness of the spire. His crystal monocle glowed with an unsettling light as he stared at the pool curiously. Even now, he looked refined and composed, that air of mischief never leaving his side. It should work. I did everything I could. Still, it's so exciting. I'll be betting my life on this, haha. It's been a while since I felt this much elation. When was the last time I did something so insane? Ah, right, when I stole this region, yes. Still, I'm a little confused. My heart is beating wildly, as if it cannot be contained in my chest. Risking everything on this. Of course, can I find anything more ecstatic than doing the impossible? Nothing. Only by dissecting the laws of this world one by one, only by doing everything that contradicts what's known as common sense, only then will I have fun. I'm an error. Contradicting the laws that make up this world is natural for me. Amon's eyes gleamed with ambition, his heart boiling with anticipation. But meh, I can't go crazy like last time. I need to act with caution this time since my child's life is on the line. Unlike my friends, Evangelo can't protect himself. He sighed, conflicting emotions rising from his heart. Whatever happens, I have to protect my child, by any means necessary. Even if he has to hate me for that later. Yes, we're ready. He nodded at Jacob, who sighed and glanced back at the pool of liquid blackness. We've discussed everything already, but let me remind you. Jacob's voice grew grave. The forgotten shore in ancient times was merciless and unforgiving. The people were insane, and they would do everything to bring the sun back to this realm by any means necessary. We're not aware of their culture and traditions, but I doubt it's anything pleasant, so be cautious. He paused, letting his words sink in. From what we've gathered, the goal to survive this nightmare is destroying the spire. The forgotten shore must never taste the warmth of light again. Understand? Everyone nodded, their expressions grim. They had already prepared their tools, lanterns, weapons suited for assassination, poison, and more. Jacob smiled in approval and continued. After entering the nightmare, the first thing you need to worry about is your own safety. After that, gather as much information as you can and regroup at the ruins below the skeleton of the ancient Leviathan. From there, the real trouble begins, and you'll have to plan how to destroy the spire. His gaze hardened. Remember, the condition for survival is destroying the Crimson Spire. The artificial sun must never be born. He paused, then glanced at Luna with a thoughtful look. Luna, if you're separated from your child, don't act rashly. Recklessness won't save Evangelo. If it's possible to rescue him, then do it. If not, he let the implication hang in the air. Do as we've planned. Luna nodded, looking down and biting her lower lip in frustration, her fists clenched. Nevertheless, she agreed. Being emotional wouldn't help. Besides, she needed to digest the sower's characteristics and grow stronger as soon as possible. Not to mention finding Eamon and supporting him. His plan was as crazy as everything he'd ever done in the Dark City. Without her, it would fail. Raven. Jacob turned to the young man with pitch black hair and 4 onyx eyes, who stared into the distance aimlessly while yawning. You'll be responsible for finding Evangelo. Your sole purpose in this nightmare is to protect the child, no matter what. Your abilities are tailor-made for the job. You're the perfect scout. Raven stretched lazily, then met Jacob's gaze with calm assurance. Got it. No worries. I'll take care of the boy. His human form was rather peculiar. He resembled Eamon but was taller and slightly more muscular, like a shadow given sharper edges. Jacob nodded, his gaze lingering on each of them for a moment. Then he smiled bitterly. I failed as a teacher. For that, I'm sorry. If I were more powerful, Kisong wouldn't have been able to force you into this. He sighed, then shook his head. But complaining won't change anything. So do your worst, punks, and survive. Oh, and Eamon, how's that thing doing? Eamon glanced toward the ship in the harbor, using decryption to peer into what was happening aboard the horizon's edge. The loathsome, limbless beast was growling and thrashing in its chains, miserable and contained. He nodded in confirmation and dismissed the memory, returning it to his soul sea. Everything's fine. We're good to go. Valor Clan's enchanted chains are something else, really. Then, along with his cohort, Eamon stepped into the cold pool of blackness. The moment his foot touched the surface, tenebrous darkness enveloped him. It was oppressive and freezing, creeping up his legs, his torso, his neck, until he was completely submerged. The cold bit into his bones like needles of ice, and the darkness pressed against him from all sides, suffocating and alive. Floating in the endless abyss, Eamon felt chills crawling up his spine. He shivered, drifting deeper toward the pulsating rift in reality. The rift throbbed like a wound in the fabric of existence, bleeding crimson light into the void. Soon, he found himself floating alone in complete darkness. His cohort had vanished as if they'd never been beside him at all. Even with decryption, he couldn't sense them. He was surrounded by utter nothingness, an emptiness so profound it felt like drowning in the absence of everything. The silence was absolute, crushing. It pressed against his ears until he could hear his own heartbeat, frantic and small in the vast expanse of nothing. In that nothingness, he heard the voice of the spell. Blasphemer. Prepare for your second trial. The voice was neither male nor female, neither kind nor cruel. It simply was, echoing through the void with the weight of inevitability. So this is the start. Eamon thought with a faint smile. Lady Spell, please be gentle with me this time. 9 brave ones, welcome to the nightmare. The words reverberated through the darkness, and something shifted. The void grew colder and heavier. 9, last one is Evangelo. Now, first thing I need to do, find my son, and start Myrrh. He didn't get to finish that thought. In an instant, his vision cleared. And what he saw made his blood run cold. End of Volume 2, The City of Mysteries. Omake title, I'm not a virgin. I'm a bit surprised that you asked me to dinner, Mr. Medici. Morgan's lips curled into an amused smile as she rested her cheek on her palm, glancing at Medici with mischief dancing in her eyes. Nothing to be surprised about. We're friends, and I like how you fight, Medici replied without thinking, sipping his juice after taking a bite of Haris's kebab. It could be said that Harus and Achu knew every drama that was happening in the Moirai because of how popular their places were. This dinner was about to become legendary. I'm a little curious. Why ask me? A man as handsome as you would have lots of admirers, right? I doubt you lack experience with women either. Are you seducing me, Mr. Medici? Morgan chuckled, leaning back and crossing her arms with a knowing grin. At the same time, Medici froze mid-sip. The juice sprayed from his mouth like a fountain as he choked, coughing violently and wiping his face with frantic urgency. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something, anything, but the words tangled in his throat like a mouse caught by a cat. His hands flailed uselessly in the air. Seeing his reaction, Morgan's smile twitched. Then it faltered. Then it disappeared completely, replaced by dawning horror. Wait, so, you know what, right? Medici quickly composed himself, though his ears were suspiciously red. His expression grew deadly serious as he leaned forward, intertwining his fingers like a sage about to deliver ancient wisdom, and answered with the gravitas of a man confessing to murder. Indeed, I stand before thee in radiant purity. Untouched as the first snow upon the mountains of Ravenheart. I proclaim with absolute honesty that I am the chaste wanderer, the maiden-souled pilgrim, the keeper of untouched vows. I swear upon the omnipotence of the spell that not a single romantic crusade has ever claimed my heart, nor hath any passionate storm dared to cross the sacred gates of my innocence. My virtue remaineth sealed like a holy scroll of prophecy, guarded by the malevolent dragon of the city of calamity. I walk this world as a sanctified novice, a pure-hearted angel of light, glowing with the embarrassing brilliance of one untested by Cupid's fiery arrow. That is the essence of me. The entire restaurant had gone silent. Even Harus stopped grilling kebabs to stare. Morgan stared at him for a few seconds, her expression matching his deadly seriousness. Then, with the delicacy of a surgeon delivering terrible news, she asked, "So, you're a virgin?" Medici's composure shattered instantly. He looked down at his kebab like it had personally betrayed him, his shoulders hunching as if the weight of the world had crashed upon them. On the verge of tears, he barely whispered, his voice cracking with shame, "Yes." "That's rough, buddy." Harus sighed, shaking his head. I'm a little disappointed with this chapter. It wasn't as good as I wanted it to be honest, and I didn't feel motivated to rewrite it either. Anyway, my bro was nagging me to create a Discord, so I did. Here's the link. If you'd like to join, feel free to do so. So, enough of that. Curious about what Eamon is planning? Hey, you'll find out in the nightmare. As for why I'm late, I'll be honest, I lost the plot. But luckily, I left notes behind and remembered it. Hell yeah. That's it for now, guys. I'll be taking a break because of New Year and exams, so I'll start writing again in 3 or 4 weeks. Enjoy the meal, and love you all. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.